the How Could You podcast. I'm Lauren Tocci.
And I'm Ryan Tocci.
Hey, Ryan. I feel it in my fingers. I feel it in my toes. Christmas is all around me.
Solid gold shit.
Well, welcome everyone to our first episode of December, which is not going to be a gap in our film knowledge, rather a hearty discussion, maybe even a little bit of a debate.
Yes, definitely. We're going to be going back and forth a lot. It's going to be fun. But before we get started, are you going to be okay? Because before the show started, our co-host Lauren dipped her hair into some coffee, and this has really thrown her off.
Listen, it takes a really long time for me to blow dry my hair, and my hair is at a length where I no longer have control over it. And so I went to take a sip of coffee, and there was just like my whole...
Play like a champion. I expect more from a varsity letter winner. You gotta come out and play the game here. Play hurt.
I will be fine. I will find a way to persevere.
Delicious coffee aroma will get you through to this afternoon.
And help keep me energized.
Before we get started, though, I do want to talk about last week.
Okay.
So we had our last episode, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yes.
Which garnered a little more interest than I thought, in that people that I didn't know who were really big fans of the movie.
I told you that was going to happen.
You definitely did, and I definitely was wrong.
People are going to come out of the woodwork at you, and they're not going to be happy.
But there were a lot on my side as well that thought the film may have been overrated.
Yes.
But I did. It was funny. We got a really good phone call from our brother-in-law, Mike, who is an amazing individual. He was really nice listening to our podcast coming home from work, and he had to give us a call because he said we forgot a Thanksgiving movie.
Oh, what movie did we forget?
Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, that is very true.
Yes.
That is a Thanksgiving movie.
It is. And I thought it was a really good one for him to talk about. He told this great story about how that was a big family Thanksgiving movie for him and his family. His dad would always get up and watch it. You and I talked about March of the Wooden Soldiers.
Yes.
He compared it to that. So it was a great story to hear him say it. And after he was talking about it, I totally I get it. That whole first part of that movie is Thanksgiving. So I think it is a great Thanksgiving movie to lead into Christmas.
Yeah, it does. It exists in that liminal space between the two holidays because it is about both things. But right. I like the idea of watching it at Thanksgiving time because it's about the Thanksgiving Day Parade. But I think you and I both agree that the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade also signals the start of the Christmas season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what he's saying. Like, he watched it on Thanksgiving morning. Like, that was... and I think it's a great idea. And I think it kind of goes to what we're talking about today, these kind of bridge-type movies, right?
Yes. So today we're going to be talking about alternative or unconventional Christmas movies. So movies that maybe sparked the debate of whether...
Is that where we landed on, finally?
Alternative Christmas movies?
Alternative Christmas movies?
Yeah,
We've had, 4 different titles.
Because I couldn't find a word, and maybe I need to invent a word, I don't know, I'm an English teacher, I'm allowed, to describe exactly what we're talking about.
I invented a word in high school.
No, you did. It's not a word, it's a sound. Never mind.
Story for another time.
That is a story for another time.
Wait, that sounds really weird, actually. There's no way to lead out of this. You know what? Go on.
Okay, so anyways, back to the podcast, and not your weird This Poverty life stories.
I'm sorry, you want to talk for 5 more minutes about your hair being in coffee?
It was really traumatic.
And then I don't think some cream and sugar on your...
You know I take my coffee black. This is just mean. All right, I'm going back to the episode. So we made a list of movies that can be considered Christmas movies but aren't really traditionally Christmas fare. And there are a lot of different ways we can look at this. So there's definitely a lot of horror movies that fall into this.
Yeah, there's a major list of horror movies that I think are just straight up Christmas movies for the horror fan. I mean, they are Christmas movies. It just has that horror edge. That's not going to be something you and I are going to, on the most part, talk about today.
Yeah, not today. And I feel like those films themselves, that they could be entire episodes because they're really interesting production histories with them and interesting critical receptions. But the movies we're looking at are the ones that kind of exist in those weird spaces of kind of a Christmas movie, kind of not, or maybe kind of what we talked about with Thanksgiving movies last episode, where it was there's a big Thanksgiving moment in the movie, so these movies may have big Christmas moments.
Right, like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles having one mention of Thanksgiving, and we count it as a Thanksgiving movie.
It is a Thanksgiving movie. We've got to let this one go.
But it is a good topic.
Yeah. Thank you. I believe we are both very clever for coming up with this idea. We did come up with a rating system, so we decided that if we deem it a Christmas movie, it's going to be rated as a Santa. Mm-hmm. If it's kind of in between, it's kind of Christmas, kind of not, it's going to be a snowman, because snowmen
are, right?
Yeah, they're kind of Christmassy, kind of not. They get put at Christmas time a lot, but it's a winter, icon. And then if it's just straight up not a Christmas movie at all, we're going to give it a lump of coal. Not meaning that the movie's bad, it just gets a lump of coal.
Right, yes, I think, and we'll talk when we're talking, but some of these deserve lumps of coal.
Yes, some of them do. So we are going to go back and forth now. Obviously, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that brevity is not our strong suit, so we are quite literally setting a timer for every single movie, kind of pardon the interruption style.
Yes, ESPN pardon the interruption. That's what we're going to go with here.
Which is as much sports as I'm going to be able to contribute to this. So we are going to set a timer so that way this isn't a 15-hour podcast, because we have 20 movies that we're going to go through.
That's not even to talk about the ones that we, veer off into.
No, we're gonna stick to this pre-agreed upon list of movies that we will be discussing.
I just like to say that before we start, that for all my fans out there, The Nightmare Before Christmas has been removed from this list.
Yeah, it's a shame, because we could have done a whole episode about Halloween movies alone.
But I'm excited about
maybe
this.
Next year.
Because I think there are some great movies here that have that Christmas feel, that Christmas spirit to it. And then some other great movies here that really shouldn't be even discussed as a Christmas movie, but we're going to get to.
Yeah, and I blame this on, the internet having lists, because you kind of go down the rabbit hole of, it's kind of a Christmas movie with, big, quotation marks around it, so it makes it, fun to kind of look up.
And I think you're going to start us off with the preeminent one.
Okay, so we're getting right into this. So, 2 minutes. Here we...
Drum roll, please.
Drum roll. Joy to the world. Okay, ready? Yep. 2 minutes, starting now. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Will not debate this. Big Old Santa awarded to Bruce Willis.
We're just out there right now. I'm with you, because I think pop culture has now made it. There's no question.
I don't think there's any question about it. And you and I have talked about this a lot. And I was lucky enough, I think this was last year, actually it's 2 years ago now, to be a part of a debate show of our school's podcast, The Spartan Life, and talk about this in depth as to why it is a Christmas movie. And I think setting, themes all play a really big hand into this, and you have to make a decision. We talked about this last week with Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. What makes something a Thanksgiving or a holiday movie? And it's those certain themes. Families being reunited, overcoming obstacles in favor of the season, things of that variety, I think always lend themselves really nicely to the spirit of holiday seasons and holiday giving. So I think this works really well for it. Also, it's a movie that's very committed to its Christmas theme, because there are tiny little Christmas touches all over the place. It's a Christmas party. There's Christmas decor. Ho, ho, ho. Now I have a machine gun.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah, it's very, very Christmassy.
It does have a lot of credit. I agree with you. I mean, and I think it's a valid, fun Christmas movie. So I think this... my only disappointment is I think now it's become such, lexicon to, this kind of Christmas pop culture aspect of it, that now it's kind of lost a little of its shine over the last couple of years.
I disagree, because I still think it's fun to debate.
Not the film, just the debate.
The debate itself. So here's the thing. I do think, because it's been, and I think that's why we wanted to start with this one, because it's been debated so fervently, and I think people have really settled on the fact that it is a Christmas movie. So I think what's fun to start with this is that you can kind of stamp it down. It is a Christmas movie. I think it's been very accepted as a Christmas film. And
John McClane, yeah, definitely. And that leads us right into mine. Die Hard 2.
Oh, no!
The lost film that we now can start to talk about with this one. Because if Die Hard 1 is, Die Hard 2 absolutely is as well.
So why is it a Christmas movie? Explain.
And I'm giving it a Santa right off the bat as well, just like you. The whole opening is just about Christmas. I mean, you got Christmas carolers, you got You got the Christmas music playing. You have Santa in that opening scene at the airport. There's a whole discussion with John McClane and the police officer when they're given the ticket about, come on, it's Christmas, and the cop, was still writing the ticket to the car, or I think they have it in towed, I'm sorry. So it's got all the same themes of, the first movie. In fact, that a little bit more, because this one's about getting home for the holidays, right? Which is complete Christmas type.
So why do you think that this one doesn't come up as much in that debate?
It's a sequel. And it's not even... It's probably one of the lesser sequels in the Die Hard franchise.
Nothing compared to Die Hard with a Vengeance.
No, Die Hard with a Vengeance is great.
Well, wait, no, not Die Hard with a Vengeance.
You're thinking of
the one where they're in Russia.
The fifth one in Russia.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
No, that one's terrible.
That one's definitely not a Christmas movie.
Yeah, no. I don't even remember the title of it right now.
That's why I thought it was Die Hard with...
Yeah, no, Die Hard with Vengeance was the Samuel L. Jackson one.
Oh, that one I love.
Which is excellent.
Not set at Christmas.
Yes, and then I love the Live Free or Die Hard.
What's the July 4th
which I count
movie?
as a July 4th movie. So what do you think it is?
I mean, yes. By
I know
the same
you've only ever seen it once, I believe, right?
Once, yeah. Which is why I think I flubbed what the title of the last one is, because I certainly love the first one, and it's not to say that I don't love the second one. It's just we don't rewatch it. I don't know. Maybe we build it in this year.
There's a ton of snow in it too. So
snow always makes people feel Christmas.
Always gives you that Christmas feel.
Yes.
So we're gonna count it. Lock it in.
Okay. All right. So next one on my list. So this is going to be a little bit more out there. This is the film In Bruges. If you've never seen the movie In Bruges, it is fantastic. So it stars Brendan Gleeson and my number one long-lasting Hollywood crush, Colin Farrell. At his Colin Farrell-list. I don't know if that's a word.
Let's not make that a thing.
The time is really making me stressed. It's directed by Martin McDonough, who directed 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And it's such an interesting movie to have on this list. It definitively takes place at Christmas time. They are 2 hitmen who essentially they have a hit that went really, really wrong. Not to spoil too much about the movie. But then they are stuck in Bruges, Belgium. And it's a story that's a lot about their redemption, their Catholic morality. It is something I read once described it as it's existential Christmas dread, but instead of that being in the background, they foreground that, and then there's just some Christmas decorations sprinkled throughout. So it works really well in that it has that redemptive quality of people trying to make good on kind of past grievances. It's set in, very quaint, European town, so it has that kind of old world charm to it. But I mean, it is a movie about 2 hitmen. It starts out very, very funny, but I think gets darker. Kind of has that Shaun of the Dead turn. But it's something that I really, really enjoy. It's a fun movie. I am going to rate this as a snowman because whereas I think it works really well thematically with some of those Christmas themes. They don't really try and really hammer that point home. It's more just set dressing than anything else. It's not really motivated by the fact that it's Christmas time. It's motivated by the fact that one of the characters really had a very bad day prior to the movie starting.
Yes.
How about you?
I'm gonna give it Cole, only because honestly, this movie was amazing. I didn't remember it was set at Christmas time.
Oh, okay. See, that's interesting.
It wasn't memorable to me for any Christmas aspect of it. So I'm giving it Cole, not because the movie was bad. The movie's amazing. Fantastic. But I just totally forgot about the whole Christmas aspect of it.
You're next.
All right, and then I'm going to move on to another classic film. Well, maybe a classic sequel, debated sequel, Ghostbusters 2. I'm going with Ghostbusters 2 here. So you've got the iconic Santa hat scene in that movie.
Yes.
Tell me you don't remember the Ghostbusters running with the Santa hats on.
Of course I do.
Right? Awesome. Those gray suits, they look great in them. They all, fantastic. It's all set during December, so that's why I think I bring it up here. The problem with it, though, is you have that great scene, or I guess it's a shot, and then most of it takes place after Christmas at New Year's time. So right off the bat, I'm going to say, no, this is going to be a Cole. I think this movie is not appreciated as funny as it is and as good as it is. For some reason, I didn't even find out till recently that a lot of people do not like this movie.
Oh, really?
But I think it's a great movie. Vigo, who doesn't love Vigo?
Vigo, that could be
it's not a solid, it's a sequel, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But it's so good, but it's a New Year's Eve movie.
Well, I actually think that's, like, the best place to, like, place that. Maybe that's why it works really well as, like, an alternative holiday movie, because it is set at New Year's. You don't have a lot of New Year's movies that work really well.
Yeah, it's a fun New Year's Eve movie, or that week in between Christmas and New Year's when you're kind of trying to move out of the Christmas movies. I think it's a good one there.
For sure is. Although it's really funny you say that, like, it's not, like, terribly well received. And it kind of makes you think about the trajectory of Ghostbusters, and who knows if we'll ever get, the latest Ghostbusters movie. Is Ghostbusters Afterlife? Is that the... Yeah. So hopefully we get that at some point, but it's just, like, are all sequels of this going to be so maligned? Like, can there be nothing more than that first one? And I just feel like that's such a shame, because Ghostbusters 2, I love Ghostbusters 2.
It's so good. Who doesn't love My Love? It's lifting me high.
Or we're singing way too much on this podcast, and neither of us...
I have 5 seconds to kill.
Well, we're going to call time on that one. Okay, so next up with this. So when you look up a lot of these lists, I think what gets highlighted is when there's like a significant kind of Christmas scene in the movie or Christmas moment. So I'm going to bring up the 2004 immortal classic comedy Mean Girls.
Yes!
Which I absolutely love.
It's such a fetch movie to choose.
Stop trying to make fetch a thing. So I am going to say, without a doubt, this is not a Christmas movie, but it has a phenomenal, iconic Christmas scene, which is the choreographed dance that the Plastics plus Caddy, do, like, at the Christmas pageant, which I just want to say, like, I have taught in education now for 13 years. I've never seen, like, a Christmas talent show at any of the schools I've taught at, but whatever. But, it happens, and everyone always really focuses on, like, their, like, rendition of Jingle Bell Rock as being, like, the Christmassy moment. And to me, I'm like, it's all about the Kevin Napor, like, performance beforehand. Yes. To me, that's the funniest part of that scene. That and when the friend is saying, I am beautiful. I'm like, those to me are actually, like, the showstopper moments. And then everyone kind of focuses on the jingle because it's the most Christmassy part of that. And I'm like, but, no, to me, the Kevin Napor part is the funniest part of that whole entire sequence.
It's iconic costuming and an iconic scene, so it's hard not to at least visualize that as a Christmas moment. I mean,
it is a Christmas moment.
And I think that will pop up in visuals around Christmas time. But I'm with you; it's going to get a coal as a Christmas movie. Right, because it just doesn't have that. But yes, you're right. The Kevin Napor part is so funny, and I love that Tina Fey. She's playing the piano all into it, but everybody else is so offended by his song.
I know, and she like claps like so sweetly. But like, and because why I love that is because when you have like movies that are about a school year, you tend to get to have like all of the holidays happen, which always makes it like a fun smorgasbord of getting to see like a few different movements. So I think it's a great Christmas scene, but it definitely doesn't make it then a Christmas movie.
But a great movie again.
Oh my gosh, fantastic movie. I'll never be upset watching it, but I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it at Christmas time. Up to you.
And then I'm going to go into Iron Man 3.
Such a weird...
The Marvel Christmas movie.
Do we want to say that?
I mean, and I think this is a stretch. But it does have some themes that deserves. I mean, you have the iconic Jingle Bells scene with Tony Stark singing it with the new suit while I believe he's decorating the Christmas tree. So you have that really iconic thing. There's Christmas lighting throughout the movie. There's a lot of references to Christmas throughout the film. There's the bunny that he gets, the ridiculous bunny that he gets for Pepper. So that's really big. And then you have the theme of it, which we talked recently with some friends about this with Christmas movies, where it's not necessarily about what's in the film as much about the themes of the film.
Yes.
And most of the time, I'm going to go with that. But this is one where Tony Stark, he kind of turns a leaf with it. And I think that kind of falls into it. So my first initial reaction is no, it's a lump of coal. Fine movie, I guess. You?
Can I tell you?
Yeah.
I was very ready to say lump of coal, but then, like, as you were describing it and I was remembering the movie, I'm actually going to lean a little more towards Snowman.
So you want a superhero movie? You throw this in.
Yeah, because when you think about it, like, there's a lot of sweet moments in that movie, like, with him and the boy whose name is completely going out of my head, who randomly shows up at the end of Endgame.
Spoilers!
Sorry, spoilers left and right. But it actually, I do think, works as that. Like, if any of the Marvel movies are going to kind of hit that note.
Do you Do you remember when we watched the end of Endgame and that kid was there? I kept thinking it was a Make-A-Wish kid that just got to be in the scene.
And you're like, yeah, that's so nice. And I'm like, we need to Google this. Like, because I'm pretty sure there's a reason why that kid's supposed to be there.
There was a much, different reason.
I'm giving it a snowy Iron Man. That's going to be my rating on it.
I need 30 seconds on this film, though, because there's a reason I wanted to put this movie on this list above all else. But I agree with you. This one's an argumentative. So you know what? I'm actually, you got me back around. I'm going to go with the Snowman.
Oh!
But the bigger reason I wanted to talk about this movie was directed by Shane Black. Shane Black, Monster Squad, a lot of great, big director, big writer. He's got 6 these types of Christmas films in his filmography. He's got Lethal Weapon, which we're just leaving off this list because it's another Die Hard. I mean, we could sit here and talk about it. It falls under the list, into Christmas movies. And
I love Lethal Weapon. I just don't think of it in that same vein as Die Hard.
But then you have The Last Boy Scout, which has a lot of Christmas in it. You have The Long Kiss Goodnight, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is a definite one that we could have talked about here today, Iron Man 3, and the other one, which was The Nice Guys, which has the big Christmas scene towards the end of it.
Oh my gosh, yes it does.
So Shane Black has something with Christmas that he just feels like he needs to write it into his movies.
Honestly, it makes for, great lighting. When you really think about it, Christmas lighting is the most flattering of lightings.
It's funny you say that, because I have something to talk about that later today.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but you are up, and I'm ready to move on. Because we talked way more about Shane Black than I ever expected.
Truly, honestly, we stayed on Iron Man 3 longer than I expected. Okay, so my next one is going to be about the movie Carol. So Carol was directed by Todd Haynes, who directed I'm Not There, Far From Heaven. And so this movie is definitively set at Christmas time, you have essentially this romance that occurs. There's Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara. It's a beautifully acted movie. At the time, I don't know it was one of my favorite movies, but I would mark it as something that's worthwhile watching at Christmas time for this reason alone. There is an opening or a sequence that happens a little earlier in the film when Rooney Mara is working at what essentially is like a department store. And Cate Blanchett comes in, and the lighting in it is like you're living inside of a C9 light bulb. Right. It is the softest, most beautiful 1950s glow. And most of the movie is lit that way. You feel essentially the aura of kind of that 1950s ring-a-ding tinsel tree Christmas vibe throughout the entire movie. That's essentially how the entire movie is lit. So although it's not, I would not say under any circumstances it should be considered traditionally a Christmas movie. I wouldn't give it a Santa, but for the lighting alone, the cinematography is so deliciously Christmassy. I would give it a Snowman for the lighting alone.
Well, agreed. Completely agree. But you also have that, again, iconic shot of Rooney Mara in the Santa hat.
Oh, I love that shot.
I mean, that is the shot that they use for most of the promotion with the film.
It's gorgeous.
And you just have this great shot and that scene of those two people falling in love.
Oh, and isn't Cate Blanchett just a Christmas angel?
Right.
Oh.
So I think it's a film that I think everybody should check out at some point.
Oh, for sure.
It's it's depressing at times. It's really happy at times, but it's
a worthwhile
it's a must-watch film.
Truly.
But I think you're going to give it a Snowman. I'm going to go back to it's Cole for a Christmas movie, but definitely a must-watch.
Yes. I feel bad when we keep saying Cole about these movies that are quite good. I feel like we should have come up with a very different rating system.
If we're lucky enough to be doing this podcast next year, we'll definitely come up with a better rating system.
But Carol, definitely watch. Okay, this is over to you. I went overtime.
Okay. I went overtime with Shane Black. So I'm going to go with one that I am going to say right off the bat, Santa. And it's going to be a little more controversial. Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, interesting.
We talked a little about this back when we were talking about A Nightmare Before Christmas, and we got into a lot of our bird.
Yeah, that Halloween movie. Yeah.
Yes. But to me, this kind of falls into that It's a Wonderful Life aspect, where a good portion of the film does not take place at Christmas time. But the most iconic aspect of it, the climax of it, all does. So, I mean, you got the final act all takes place around this Christmas party and I'm just losing my place with the character names, but Diane Wiest character,
yes.
She's doing the Christmas party. You have that iconic Winona Ryder shot of her in the snow. Nothing feels more Christmas than her dancing in that snow, or the ice, I guess I should say, with Edward as he's doing the ice sculpture. And you also have the Christmas themes with this that we were talking about. It's themes of love and believing, family, and acceptance. So I'm going with it deserves a Santa, because to me, even though the film has a little bit more of a depressing end, you do still get that wonderful scene of Winona Ryder older, and she's telling the story by the fireplace in that red dress, which just screams Christmas as well. And so to me, it really does fall as a Christmas film.
I can't say, so obviously we talked about this list beforehand, and I was just like, oh, he's really, okay, it's snowy. That's essentially why it's getting put in this list. You make a very cogent argument that makes me want to, it also makes me just really want to watch Edward Scissorhands. I feel like we've been talking around that movie for 2 months now, and we haven't sat down and watched it again. So I love that movie, and I think you're right. There is, when you have those iconic moments that are so rooted in kind of Christmas time or magic of the season or magic of the wintry time, I think it's easy to kind of understand why it would fall in that, or why someone might want to watch it as an alternative holiday movie this time of year. So good argument made. I would agree with you. It gets a Santa.
Yeah, Santa.
So my next one.
Or in that case, a Santa Claus.
I'm gonna go on to my next movie. Let's make this a peaceable holiday podcast. So my next one is Sleepless in Seattle. So Nora Ephron. I mean, this is the romantic comedy to end all romantic comedies. It is just so perfect. I love this movie so much. And the reason I would put it in kind of that Christmas realm, and I think I would still rate it with a snowman maybe, but the reason I do is because if you haven't seen the movie, the opening portion where Meg Ryan kind of falls in love with Tom Hanks and his voice, and he calls into a radio show, rather his son calls into a radio show because he's a widower, and he's calling into one of those old if you remember Delilah,
right.
If you remember that, so he calls in and then gets his dad on there to kind of talk about his mom who's passed away, and there was this great moment where, leading up to this, Meg Ryan has taken her fiance, home to meet her parents, and it's, the Christmas season, and kind of, and she has to travel back, so she gets in her car, and she's driving by herself, and she hears this, and she's listening to Christmas music leading up to this, and then it gets kind of tired of listening to Christmas music and turns on this radio show, and it's just the most, emotional and wonderful moment with, Tom Hanks talking about, so the host of the radio show asked, what was it about your wife? And he was like, well, how long is your show? And he has this, awesome speech that he gives, and he says, it was like coming home only to know home I had never known. It was like magic. And to me, that whole moment, makes that movie. It's just that her falling in love with how much he loved his wife, and it's Christmas time, and there's magic in the air, and it's, just such a beautiful moment. I love that movie so much. And I will get Rita Wilson.
Beaming.
There's a scene later on where Rita Wilson talks about An Affair to Remember and how emotional that movie makes her. And the movie Affair to Remember makes me very emotional too. But Sleepless in Seattle truly makes me emotional when I talk about it. My arms are flapping vigorously because I just love that movie so much. It's the all-time romantic movie in my mind.
All right. I'm not even going to try to argue with you or go with that.
Watch it at Christmas time. It's beautiful.
I think it always gets played into as a Valentine's Day movie a lot.
Yes, it does, because the end part happens at Valentine's Day, but to me it's all about that beginning part that happens when she's in the car and it's Christmas
Tom
time.
Hanks and Meg Ryan make that movie from a Hallmark movie into a classic.
Yeah, because it could have been tripe.
Yeah.
But it's so well acted. Rob Reiner's in it. It's Rosie O'Donnell's, and it was just such a great movie. I love that movie.
Let me ask you this as I move on to mine.
Okay.
Let me ask you, I'm going to give you a cast here. Charlize Theron, Gary Sinise, Ben Affleck, Right now, if you had the opportunity, would you go and buy a ticket, go see that movie?
Yes.
Who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't?
Who wouldn't?
Charlize Theron is one of the most accomplished actresses of our time.
Right? And Ben Affleck, I mean, I know he's had his ups and downs, but yeah, he's, Gary Sinise. Who does not love Gary Sinise?
You're a monster if you don't love Gary Sinise. He's an amazing actor.
True American actor, Gary Sinise.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is Reindeer Games, which gets a lump of coal and just a piece of crap. So we're not even going to talk about this.
Wow, that was so vicious. I didn't even start the timer.
There's no need.
Jeez. Can I tell you, I don't remember hating this movie when I was like 14 and didn't know any better.
I don't know. It's got a bank heist and some Santa suits. It was terrible then. It's terrible now. Moving on.
Okay, next film. All right, so I'm going to keep on my romantic comedy train.
All right.
Because now I'm all full with, emotional warm feels. And I'm going to go with the movie, which is, I'm going to give it a Santa right off the bat. This is definitively a Christmas movie, and it is the movie While You Were Sleeping.
Ooh.
So
okay.
Sandra Bullock, Bill Pullman, Peter Gallagher. It is the story of essentially a woman who she is working as a train operator, train booth operator. I can't do words.
Words fail.
Train booth operator, and she sees a guy fall. He gets knocked on the tracks when he's getting mugged, and then she goes and saves him. And then there's hilarity ensues. Essentially, his family ends up thinking that she's his fiance. She goes along with it because she is very much so. She's alone. She's lost both of her parents, and the movie takes place all at Christmas time because it happens on Christmas, and then it's the period from Christmas to New Year's when this kind of all unfolds. And I love this movie so much. It is very, very sweet. It's Sandra Bullock, when she was, kind of in that, America's Sweetheart kind of, space where she was doing, a lot of, romantic comedies.
Can we get that back from her? Because I miss that.
I do. I miss that, that bent in her career when that's what she was doing. And it's, and Bill Pullman is just, so sweet. And the whole family, because it's all about, them gathering and it being really hard because they have a son who's in a coma and they have this woman who, they're trying to get to know, and they're, slowly, all kind of falling in love with her and, as she's supposed to be a part of their family, but they're not really engaged. So it's this whole thing. And it has really sweet and I think very genuine family gathering kind of scenes where it's oh, that is how the holidays feels. It's kind of manic, it's kind of crazy, but it's also super endearing and wonderful. And then, it culminates in, she ends up falling in love with Bill Pullman. I don't think that's much of a spoiler.
You're a spoiler all over the place here today.
I used to watch that movie every night at bedtime. Because I don't know, maybe the title alone, but it would just lull me into the most peaceful sleeps. But I do feel it is firmly a Christmas movie, although I don't think many people would consider it that.
And it's going to fall as a Christmas movie to me because of you, simply put. I think, I don't know if I had seen it before you and I were together, and I think if you asked me, I could tell you about the first 15, 20 minutes of it, because you said you put it on.
Because I put it on at bedtime, that's why.
But yeah, I'm going with it. That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Christmas movie by osmosis.
Moving on to another romantic classic,
Ooh,
Rocky IV.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that's where it was going.
Rocky IV deserves to be talked about in this because the major event is at Christmas. It is the fight in Soviet Union, Rocky versus Drago. I don't know why I forgot his name for a second.
Can I tell you, you had said this to me the day we were when we were coming with us and we were Rocky IV. And I was seriously, because the snow, dude, how thin is the criteria? And then you mic dropped, you're it does take place at Christmas. And I was oh my gosh, I don't even remember that part.
After Rocky stops the Cold War by defeating Ivan Drago.
I can change.
And he also yells Merry Christmas to his son.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I tell you why I don't think it? Because I think about the robot, and that's a birthday present for
Happy birthday, Polly.
Yeah, and so I think about that as that part of it. So I don't think about it as a Christmas movie.
It's we could talk about how it's not a very good movie.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to alienate people. It's a wonderful music video.
This is one of those movies that is just I absolutely love. But if you take a step back, it is so bad. And they're recutting it. They are recutting it. Stallone is going back and recutting Rocky IV. I'm only assuming that there will be 5 more montages which will be great because when I start working out again one day, I'll have more music to listen to.
Your relationship to this movie is very confusing to me because of this, like, love-hate, like, because you dunk on it constantly, but then you're like, if you need to be inspired, like, you put on that soundtrack.
It's a fantastic
It is a fantastic soundtrack. We used to, when we ran, which we don't anymore, we used to have a hill in the parkway that we called the Drago Hill, yes. Because when you get to the top of it, you just want to scream out, like, Drago, because it was so steep and high.
Anybody that knows that hill right now is probably like, that thing is like, dude.
Because I'm going to say, even when I was in shape, I was not in shape. So...
yeah. Maybe we should watch Rocky IV more and get a little more motivated.
You know what? I think that's it. Because you've now had this turn where you make fun of it, so we've not been watching as much, and that's why we don't work out. You and Rocky IV are the reason we don't work out anymore.
Do we watch it at Christmas time?
I don't want to watch at Christmas.
Yeah, it's
I don't
not
want to work out
movie.
At Christmas.
No. It's a good January movie.
It's a very good January movie.
It's got all that winter.
Yeah, so are you giving this a lump of coal?
Get you motivated for the spring to start working out again.
Yeah.
All right.
That does feel like a springtime
lump of coal for Christmas. Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 80s for, motivational.
That's your rating system for how much something motivates us? Is the pinnacle Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 80s for motivating
the presidential fitness test.
Okay, we gotta move on.
We're gonna do some shuttle runs.
You are way past your 2 minutes on Rocky IV. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to next bring up. So this is a movie that I don't know why it doesn't get considered a Christmas movie because it like definitively is, but the movie Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, yes.
And Anna Faris playing essentially what I think is supposed to be like kind of like a mock at almost like Lady Gaga, but early Gaga. So it's Ryan Reynolds and he is traveling with Anna Faris, who is a pop star, and his plane gets diverted because she is trying to heat up something in tinfoil in a microwave on an airplane. And it's a private plane. And it gets diverted, and they end up having to land in New Jersey, so he ends up having to go home for the holidays, even though he was making excuses to not have to go home for the holidays. And then it's like him, like, trying to, like, essentially woo back a girl that had, quote-unquote, like, friend-zoned him, although I absolutely despise that term. But they were really good friends, and she didn't feel the same way. Her name is Jamie Palomino, and it's all about, like, essentially all of these guys who, like, are in love with Jamie Palomino, and then, like, Ryan Reynolds trying to woo her back. And the thing is like, if you just, like, look at Ryan Reynolds, look at, like, an ad for his gin, you'd be like, why is this such a feat? Like, come on, it's Ryan Reynolds. But when you see Ryan Reynolds in this movie and his physical comedy and how almost grotesque he makes himself, not physically, like, he looks like Ryan Reynolds. It's just all the things he does.
The only
so funny.
Small issue I would have is the bodysuit that they use with him at the beginning.
Oh, it's terrible.
That doesn't age very well, but outside of that, I agree with you. Yeah. This movie is really funny, and parts that it shouldn't work, but it's just really funny, and it's got all the Christmas aspects to it.
Because he's home for the holiday, he's doing all of the Christmas things. It's about him having to, like, kind of understand, like, why he shouldn't have been running away from, like, his family. And it has this awesome, so there's a song by Fountains of Wayne at the end, kind of like a very sensitive moment. It's a song called Hackensack, and so it was written by Adam Schlesinger, who passed away this year, sadly, who's an amazing songwriter, and it works so well, and it's like that perfect, like, moody, because it's not a Christmas song, but it works so well in that moment to get him to understand, like, he knows his holidays have kind of gone awry, and it just, like, works so well in that moment. So I would say that this gets a Santa. I think definitively it is a Christmas movie. I just don't think it gets classified that way, because I think the Ryan Reynolds comedy of it all kind of puts it in that category.
Why? Because, I put it in the quirkiness of, other than it doesn't have Christmas in the title, I'd put it in the same quirkiness as, Surviving Christmas or Deck the Halls or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe even funnier in some ways.
And I don't know if it's one of those things, if it's just, like, hasn't found its, like, audience, like, it's one of those ones that's not, like, rewatched, it's not shown a lot. It's on Netflix, so it's, like, easy to access it, but it just doesn't seem to have, like, a... I just think
You're not gonna get that. It's not It's a Wonderful Life here, but you're gonna... It's a good, funny film for this time.
Oh, yeah, no, let me temper this. I was not saying it's a classic. I'm just saying it's very enjoyable, and I highly recommend the watch.
Yes.
So, up to you now.
All right, so I was, I know I got a little bit of, dunking on Rocky IV in fun. I really do enjoy the movie a lot. So I'm going to pitch it to a movie that you may end up having some thoughts about. Christmas Eve, 1989, Rent. The musical Rent Directed by Chris Columbus, who we've talked about a great deal in this podcast.
Why is Chris Columbus so in our lives right now?
He has so much Christmas films. That's
all right. Fine, make your case for Rent because I have things.
I mean,
to
ultimately,
say.
it takes place on Christmas Eve, 1989, in the movie version. I don't believe the musical actually gives it a year, because actually, if the year that they give to it makes no sense because some of the references are outdated or haven't happened. It's just weird. But anyway, it happens Christmas Eve, and then the final act takes place on Christmas Eve the following year. There's also variety of Christmas references during the songs. And then the most iconic would be Angel's outfit when they come on Christmas morning. Angel in that iconic Santa outfit, doing the dance and the song. Here's to you. Oh, man, so fantastic.
Here's the problem is, so you bring up Angel, and then I just want to weep.
Right.
Because such a beautiful character, but
Tom Collins is going to make you cry every single time when you think about Angel.
When he does the reprise of I'll Cover You, I am literally, I'm done. Like, I can't. Every time we went to go see it on Broadway, I was done at that. I think I would start whimpering because I knew it was coming. So here's the thing, and the reason why you forecasted that I do not like the film version of this.
Understandably so.
I have never warmed to it. I felt that the characters, although, one of the things that it did right that a lot of Broadway musical film adaptations do wrong is they used Broadway people in the roles. I would say, without a doubt, Jesse L. Martin still fit his role beautifully. But the rest of the cast looked way too old to be playing the characters they were playing.
Jesse L. Martin looked way too old for that
Jesse
role.
L. Martin did not.
He just is amazing. His voice is amazing.
No one else should sing the reprisal I'll Cover You.
I mean, I think that's the thing with that film, which is why I will slightly defend it. We talk about this with food, we for the movie Chef, where it's like you watch that movie not because it's the Broadway musical, but so you can have a taste of the Broadway musical. Although there is a video version of the actual Broadway musical, so you probably should just watch that.
Just watch that, because then you'll still get to hear Jesse L. Martin.
Rosario Dawson. Who doesn't want to watch Rosario Dawson?
I love Rosario Dawson. I love Rosario Dawson so much, but it's just. The movie version to me never, I don't know, there's a layer of grime that it was missing.
It doesn't.
It does not work.
It's flat. Yes.
And honestly, the ending in particular works miserably in the film.
Fine film if you want it, if you just want the music. I'm going to give it a Santa, though, because I do think it falls into a Christmas movie.
Fine.
If that's what you want.
All right, moving on to a movie that I absolutely and truly love, and that is set at Christmas time, but definitely could fall into that category of, do you really categorize this as a Christmas movie? Batman Returns.
Yeah.
So I love 1992, Michelle Pfeiffer, iconic, just all over. I love Batman Returns. And it's set at Christmas time. There's a lot of, so when you go back and watch it, other than, kind of the snowy Gotham vibes, and I don't know, I always, kind of picture Gotham in, an eternal winter, no matter what version of Gotham I'm seeing. I just assume it's a little chilly out. But it's set at Christmas time. There's a lot of kind of Christmas-like kind of dressings. It works really well because there's something about the contrast of kind of the maniacal nature of the Penguin and then, Catwoman against that backdrop that I think just works well. That contrast of what's, essentially what does, a really happy holiday look like in a, crime-ridden city? It's, it were and in Tim Burton's mind. So there's just layers upon layers of kind of twisted versions of the holidays that kind of pop up with that. So I don't at all probably would consider this even remotely a Christmas movie, but it is set at Christmas time. And we've never watched it at Christmas time.
We haven't.
I don't think this year will be an exception, but I do think if you're looking for something that has that winter holiday vibe and you're I just can't watch another Hallmark movie, then maybe turn on Batman Returns for a true love story between Catwoman and Batman.
I love that that's your two bookends there.
Yes.
Listen, if you're going to watch a superhero movie at Christmas time, I'm going to go with Batman Returns because just another great Tim Burton Christmas film.
Yeah. I think, honestly...
you put that in there with Edward Scissorhands and A Nightmare Before Christmas.
What is wrong with you? Let it go.
Yeah,
but no, I think it works really nicely in that it has all of kind of those nice moments of where kind of the Christmas cheer, and I love a good juxtaposition, and we talked about this when we talked about Nightmare Before Christmas, something that Tim Burton does so well, he juxtaposes things in a way that makes you have to think about like what the root heart of each item is. So if you're taking like a villain like Penguin and putting him against like a Christmas backdrop, it makes you have to kind of like be at war with both. Like, do I have to look at him a little bit more kindly? Do I have to look at Christmas a little bit more with like kind of like sinister nature? Like the fact that like, you know, you have like Batman's like giant, beautiful, like Christmas tree with white lights on, and you're like, you know, Alfred did that. Like you know, Bruce Wayne's not taking the time to put up that Christmas tree,
right? With Merry Christmas, Alfred. I believe.
Yes, I believe it is the last line
Batman
in the movie.
is the last line, so yeah.
It actually, I think, can work very, very well for that, and especially if you're kind of like in the movie for like a good superhero movie, like maybe do a double feature Iron Man 3, Batman Returns.
I'm putting it as a Santa too.
You know,
and we've talked about it for like
Santa.
4.5 minutes, so I think
I didn't even want to set the timer because I'm like, no, it's Batman Returns. I want to talk about it endlessly. Especially Michelle Pfeiffer.
I'm gonna move on to a film. Again, probably more iconic scene, but Better Off Dead.
Oh, fantastic.
Which, somebody labeled this as a horror film, and I was like, that is not a horror film. I have no idea how to describe it other than a really, really dark comedy.
It's its own thing.
It's its own thing. But that's the point, right? This movie is so bizarre. I couldn't even imagine necessarily it being made today. I mean, those who have not seen Better Off Dead, I mean, how could you not have seen Better Off Dead?
Yeah. Do you have any idea what the street value of this mountain is?
John Cusack as Lane Meyer as a teen that gets dumped right before Christmas and is suicidal, and all of the comedic hijinks that ensue of him failing each attempt.
This movie does not have a category. I don't even know if we have the appropriate amount of time to talk about it.
But it's so funny.
So funny.
It is so funny. And, you know, and listen, there's a lot of stuff that, you know, I don't want to, you know, that triggering with that type of topic. So if that's not your thing, do not watch it. But it's a very dark comedy. But if you're okay with that, I definitely say check it out if you never had, because it's a really funny movie, and it has this really iconic Christmas scene.
Yes.
Where, you know, Lane's mom is giving out presents that are just TV, like old 80s TV dinners that they're unwrapping. The mom's in this reindeer outfit that rivals Ralphie's bunny suit. She's in this reindeer.
Why have I never worn that for Christmas Eve?
As long as you don't give me the one she gives the dad, which is like a holiday anteater. You know, then you have Lane crashing through the garage door that the dad had just refixed for the holidays, and then he sees the neighbor wearing the same outfit that he is, which is this ridiculous reindeer. And then you have the neighbor, you know, where the mom's giving Simone the picture of Ricky, who is this just creepy, you know, son of hers trying to get with the French exchange student.
I forgot about that part.
So there's a very iconic Christmas moments to it. But the rest of the film is very separate. It's a lot of snow because of the skiing aspect of it. But so I'm going to put it as coal for Christmas. But definitely, again, as we were talking about, a movie you should check out.
I would give it a snowman.
You give it a snowman?
Give it a snowman.
Nice. All right.
It's snowy. It's got snowy vibes.
We could go. Right?
Yeah.
That's what we're going now, right? Snow vibes.
Snowy vibes. Well, because snow vibes work really well for, like, and again, like, and if holiday movies aren't your thing, this is a way of, like, watching some programming that can feel kind of, like, themey to the time of year without it having to be outright a Christmas movie. So that's what I'm going to say, snowman. All right. So now to my next one. And I'm going to really try and stick to the time limit on this, but it's really hard because it is a movie that I really love. I was lucky enough to get to show it last year as part of the First Saturday Horror Series at Frank Banco Alehouse Cinema, and that is the movie Rare Exports.
I'm clapping already.
I love this movie. So if you don't know the kind of the background of this movie, so it's set in Finland. It's essentially a team, kind of like an evil corporation, is unearthing Santa and his elves. And well, Santa breaks free and finds himself captured in the house of a father and son, kind of captured. But essentially the movie is about, like, the existence of, like, Santa and his elves, but it's much more sinister than I'm making it sound like. 'Cause the thing I'm saying sounds kind of cute and adorable. Like, Santa has a fireside chat. No, Santa's, like, murdery.
Right.
And it's actually kind of terrifying. So it is a horror Christmas movie. But it's a horror Christmas movie that I think, like, leans into kind of, like, yes, it's a horror Christmas movie, but it tries to lean into like the family aspects of it.
There's
and, like,
a lot of heart to the movie.
It really is. It's very
there's
sweet.
a lot of heart to it. There's just a lot of comedy to it too, but it's not a comedy. That's very clear.
But it's very funny.
Yeah,
it's very funny.
Right. Yes. There's very funny aspects of it. It's hard to describe more than just the base end of it.
Because even I feel like everything I'm saying, like, it's making it sound like something it isn't. Because even like you're bringing in the comedic aspects of it. Because you're right, I laugh a lot when I watch this movie, but I have a certain type of sense of humor that I think lends itself to this type of movie, and it is a horror movie, but I wouldn't say it's super scary by any means.
Not at all.
It's more just...
I don't want that. I don't think anybody should be scared away, no pun intended, by that aspect of it either.
No. So it's again, it's one of those movies that exists in that kind of like weird space of it gets classified as a Christmas horror movie, which is appropriate, but it's a little bit more than that, because if you're comparing that to something like Silent Night, Deadly Night, like, there's no comparing the two. But it's actually like, it kind of goes more into that if you like, and I know I do, like when you read like kind of like the old mythologies of like, you know, like kind of origin stories of Santa and like in different cultures and times, and like, and if that kind of is enchanting to you, then this will work. And I will not spoil a thing about the ending, but I love the ending of this movie so much.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Cannot say enough about this movie.
It's so good. I really highly recommend, if you are not familiar with this movie, if nothing else, watch a trailer on it.
Yes.
And then or just check it out. Just trust us on it. Like, you know, it's really good.
We would not lead you astray.
Probably not.
Please don't get mad at us if you don't like rare sports.
Right.
All right, this is over to you now.
Well, I think it's a good bridge to what I'm going to talk about here, because it's funny with you. We found this out, you know, a lot of jokes about the Nightmare Before Christmas aspect of things with you, but you're not big into more the scary or Christmas is sacred to you, so you're not big with that.
I love horror movies.
Right.
And any other month of the year, I'm good.
December.
Yeah.
So Rare Exports is that rare one for you that's in there. Here's one that it took a while for us to watch because of that, and I fell in love with this movie immediately.
Me too.
Did you?
Yes.
Anna versus the Apocalypse. So let me describe what this movie... It is a British horror comedy musical.
Accurate.
So, talk about your niche audience. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. British horror comedy Christmas musical.
Yeah.
So...
Apocalypse. Zombies. Candy canes.
Oh my god, this movie I am so glad we finally sat down and watched it. From about the first few seconds, I was hooked. I loved it. It's just all these aspects that I want. It's brilliant music, songs that I want to actually put onto my iPod and listen to. You know, great characters. I thought all the characters were really fleshed out, which is hard to do with a musical, but I thought each of them were very diverse and they had a lot to them. It's funny, it's heartwarming, but it's also scary. It's also...
Yeah, it's got some moments.
It's very sad at times, too. It's joyful. It's just... It's got all of these aspects to it. I just love this movie. I can't wait to watch it again.
No, and I'm so glad how excited you are by it, like, because I agree completely. I didn't expect the music to be that good. I expected to walk away going, oh, it's clever.
Yes.
But no, the music was great. It was well acted. I completely agree with you. It's one of the things I enjoyed most about it is I felt like they wanted me to know all of the characters really well and for them to have depth. And again, you're right, that is entirely hard to do in a musical, like, and especially in like a film musical. It's only an hour and a half long. You don't have a lot of time, but this movie, like, it packs a lot in its hour and a half run time. So. Like, it's great.
Yeah, it is a really fantastic film. Highly recommend it. The Christmas aspect of it, it does take place at Christmas time. So, you know, you have this thing with Anna walking through with this candy cane beating zombies, you know, so, and there's a lot of Christmas, but I also wouldn't necessarily say this has to be a Christmas movie, though. That's the only thing I would say. As much as I love this movie, I'm happy to watch this any time of the year, and it doesn't have to be a Christmas time movie.
I don't think it needs to be a Christmas movie, but I do think it's definitively a Christmas movie.
You'll give it that?
Oh,
okay, interesting.
It's
so I'm going Snowman, but you're going Santa?
I'm going Santa.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Either way, again, go
check
see
it out for sure. We are very, very much behind on this, and I'm glad we finally saw it.
And then kind of moving over to another film for me that I want to gush over, so if I may jump ahead of you for just a second.
Of course, go ahead.
Eyes Wide Shut.
Okay, this is really weird to talk about in a Christmas...
It's
talk
a Kubrick
about
Christmas.
Yeah, alternative Christmas movie
Christmas.
for sure.
But I will tell you, I believe it's a Christmas movie. I believe it's a Santa. But yes, it's going to be a very more adult, Christmas movie. It's going to be, not one that everybody's going to want to watch. But to me, it is one of my all-time favorite films. It is one of my all-time favorite Kubrick films. I think this movie is just beautifully shot and so well acted, and the storytelling is amazing, what Kubrick does throughout it. And one of the aspects that he incorporates into this film is the lighting. And by choosing to put it at Christmas time, what he does, you start with this iconic Christmas, or not iconic, but, this big Christmas party.
It's Kubrick, it's all iconic.
It's all iconic, right?
Yeah.
This Christmas party and the lighting and the trees and this beauty. So you're right into that setting of that time of year, which gives you its own emotional aspects to thing. And Kubrick is big on shooting in natural light. So one of the aspects, by deciding to shoot this film at Christmas time, which a lot of the night scenes and things like that, he was able to shoot with natural light because of using the Christmas lighting throughout it. And the Christmas themes are through the whole film. The only scene in the entire movie that doesn't have some decoration or some aspect of Christmas is the major scene of the movie.
That probably, and this is the thing, and I think this is why, I chuckled at first, is because, unfortunately, what probably most people know about this movie is not, to me, the best part of this movie. Not to say that it is not a beautifully shot scene, not that it's not important thematically, narratively. However, the thing that you probably know going into this movie is not the thing it should be marked for the most.
Right. But it also has those themes. Man's journey to find himself, to find the true meaning of, the spirit in him, the spirit in finding his family again, and what that means to him, and that whole journey which he finds towards the end. And I'm spoiling, I apologize. And the last scene takes place at FAO Schwartz, so,
Yes, it does. So right there, super Christmassy.
Big and eyes wide shut.
And the night before. Lots of Christmas movies.
Listen, I'll sit here and I would love to do a whole podcast just on Eyes Wide Shut, because to me it is just an amazing piece of film work. And I think it could sneak in there as you want your alternative Christmas movie.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah, no, I completely, I echo your sentiments entirely. I also love Eyes Wide Shut. It's really funny, though. I almost kind of forgot it's a Christmas movie because there's so much more going on in the film, but it's you're right, so much of what makes that cinematography so brilliant is the fact that everything's underscored by the fact that it's happening at the holiday season. There's kind of these these really interesting family dynamics at play, and then also the dismantling of family dynamics during a time in which you're supposed to be bringing family together and kind of finding that. So it works really nicely as a thematic to that. It's also interesting because yes, it is as described. It's a Kubrick version of a Christmas story. Yeah, Kubrick Christmas. So I 100% agree and echo everything you said.
So we got one more to go.
We do.
You're gonna finish us out here.
And I am going to say off the bat, it is 100% a Santa. Actually, I'm going to say it's 100% a Mogwai, and that is Gremlins. Yeah. An ultimate alternative Christmas movie because, yes, it falls very much in that horror Christmas realm. Because I will definitively say, as a child, and still to this day, you can attest to this, I cannot hear the song "Do You Hear What I Hear" without getting a little freaked out. Yeah. So, you have, obviously, the setting of Christmas time. You have the fact that, you have Gizmo is a Christmas gift. You have all of these kind of beautiful Christmas thematics that happen, and kind of the idea of Christmas gone wrong, a present going wrong, it kind of works so well for that. You have one of the most demented speeches in all of Christmas canonical film history, Phoebe Cates talking about her dad. It's honestly, to me, there's no way to talk about those kind of debates about is it a Christmas movie without this being at the top of the list. And I feel even more strongly than I do about Die Hard as categorizing this as firmly a Christmas movie. It's
firmly a Christmas movie.
Yes.
I mean, the shots of the Gremlins caroling.
Oh, I love that.
Gizmo with the Santa hat.
When Gizmo first comes out of the box and his little face.
I mean, he's a Christmas present. Yes. I'm totally with you. There should be no debate. This shouldn't even be an alternative Christmas movie. This is a Christmas movie.
So with that being said, to kind of close this out, so we've gone through 20 films that fall in this alternative or unconventional Christmas movie, categorization that we've given them, do you have a top 3 that everyone should watch of your...
Top 3 Christmas or top 3 films?
Top 3 films from this unconventional alternative Christmas list.
If I'm giving it to people, I'm going Gremlins, I'm going Rare Exports, Anna versus the Apocalypse.
So those are your top 3?
Those would be my top 3. Eyes Wide Shut, it's not going to be for everybody.
No, it's not. I agree with you there. Mine's not terribly deserved, but mine would be Gremlins, Die Hard.
Nice.
Rare Exports.
Excellent.
So I think, like, the through line here is, if nothing else, like, please make sure that you're watching Gremlins and Rare Exports this holiday season.
Absolutely.
So we'll be back in 2 weeks with our next holiday-themed episode, which is going to be about the best Santas ever to be captured on film.
Ho, ho, ho.
If you aren't already, please follow us on social media at Instagram at How Could You Podcast, on Twitter at How Could You Pod. If you have any suggestions, questions, comments, or thoughts, you can email us. It's howcouldyoupodcast@gmail.com.
Until next time, enjoy the Odyssey.